Today we'll talk about what search activities tells us about online health. And what's really interesting about search activity is this is what consumers are typing in. They're actively looking for these topics. And so they're telling us exactly what they are looking for. And so it's very important to pay attention to the way they type these in, misspellings, falsities that they may believe about certain drugs or conditions. It's very important to understand what they're typing in and why, so that you can provide the proper information. Today we'll talk a little bit about the online landscape, drug recalls, and consumer behavior, specifically how that relates to search. So we'll start off first looking at, on the left we have visits to the health and medical category. And what's pretty interesting here, this looks at weekly visits over 1 year. And what really jumps out immediately are those two dips that take place. And so this is when people aren't as active in looking for health information. Those dips coincide with Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so people are probably eating a bit more and maybe not quite as concerned, or they don't want to know right at that moment. And so you also see a little bit around Valentine's Day also. So you definitely see there's probably a chocolate correlation going on as well with the data. And so what's interesting about the category, the bulk of the visits to health and medical websites are information websites. 44% in August of the visits to the category were going to information websites like WebMD. So a bulk are going to very broad general websites. There's also well-being, where folks are looking for diet information, general nutrition and health. And then you've got other categories like insurance, pharmacies, hospitals, and so on down the line. But definitely the general information category is where the bulk of visits are going. What's really interesting about this is when you think about the aging of the population, and others have talked a bit about how we're seeing where more older folks are actively going online. We've seen the same trend. In last month, August, 22% of the online visitors were 55 and up. That's up from 16% in August 2007. So we're seeing this increasing shift where folks are older, and that maps what's going on with the US population, where we've got the aging of the population as well, and these folks are very active online. Now when you look at the information category, because that is that largest one, you see that the biggest category there is 28% are 55 and over. And so there on the right, we've got the representation. And so that's telling us how likely they are, in compared to the online population at large, to be visiting these sites. And so the older folks are the ones that well over index at 129 for likelihood to be visiting the information websites. Now that's not to say that those other categories or those other age brackets aren't important as well, because these are also going to be caregivers, and there's also certainly no age specific around health in general. So there's lots of different issues that are going to be relevant at different points in someone's life. So we see a lot of interesting searches going on in our search data. And so with health, the biggest thing that we always see happening are people looking for symptoms, diseases, treatments. And so there's a lot of self-diagnosing going on. Perhaps they don't have health insurance, but then also second opinions. And so a lot of folks, like e-patient Dave is a great example, told one thing. Let's see how we can fix that and see what other options there are out there. And so this is a word cloud of symptom searches that people are looking for. So you see some popping out like salmonella, pregnancy, lupus, and we'll dig into this a little bit more in terms of what people are looking for when they're going online for health information. Now just to kind of start it off with a little bit of fun, where is searches are really common online, and what's funny is, number one, where's my tax refund? Number two, where's Chuck Norris? So a lot of concern about where Chuck Norris is. And so it turns out Chuck Norris has been a very popular internet meme over the past year. And what's really funny is if you do that search on Google, a website comes up. And the result is this fake looking Google page that says, you don't look for Chuck Norris looks for you. And so you see all these people always looking for this. And so it's interesting to see, what people are concerned about. The oil spill, Justin Bieber is also very popular in the search data. Bubbles the chimp, he's another consistent top 10 And people are really concerned where Bubbles the chimp is, which is pretty interesting. But also you see some health-related searches taking place as well. So where is my liver is also always in the top 10. Little disconcerting as to why, we won't get into that. But you know, we've also got where's my appendix, gallbladder, stomach. So people are concerned, they're probably having some pains and saying, okay, where is this specific organ, so that they can start their research. Now we also see symptoms as another common search query taking place. And so we took a look at everything that includes symptom, both singular and plural, to see what were the top symptom searches taking place. And so here you've got pregnancy, diabetes, lupus, on down the line. And so also because folks are more anonymous online, you also see a lot of searches for things like herpes and sexually transmitted diseases, because the cloak of no one knows who you are online helps people be a little bit more honest about what they're trying to search for. Now what we have seen recently, if you just look year over year, you've got, in terms of the changes, the ones that increase the most that are kind of the common ones. There's more searches taking place for both diabetes and pregnancy year over year, so during this past time frame. But then also you've got things like allergies and rheumatoid arthritis, and so these are the ones that have increased year over year. So these are the ones where folks are actively seeking out content around these specific issues. Also, you can see that salmonella is #1, and that was really big in the word cloud, and so you have a lot of people looking for symptoms of salmonella due to the egg recall that took place. Now also, when people are searching online, treatments is another one, and so we took a look at when people are looking for treatment and cancer, what types of cancers are they searching for? And so here you can see prostate, breast, skin cancer, cervical cancer, on down the line. And what's interesting about the types of searches that people are doing is, first you've got kind of the broad ones. So in terms of prostate cancer treatment, that's exactly what people are looking for, kind of the most obvious one. But then also what I thought was really interesting is if you flip that and say treatment for prostate cancer, it's getting more paid traffic. So someone is just taking that kind of flipped version of that and buying more of the traffic. And so it's always another strategy that if you're not optimized or you're trying to optimize, and it takes a lot of time to do so, there's paid search as an option as well. And so this gives a sense for which ones are more competitive, what people are looking for. Now also, particularly in terms of treatment, you see a lot of kind of qualifier words taking place. And so best, new, latest, holistic, alternative. And I think that this really speaks again to that second opinion that people are looking for, because maybe they were told one thing from their doctor, but they want to see what is the latest and newest treatments that are out there, because maybe if they went to a different hospital, they could find a different treatment. And so they're actively searching out this information. And where they're going is also always interesting. You see National Cancer Institute. It's a good obvious one that's going to come up very easily, but you see where these folks are going. I also thought what was interesting is that #6 is the first hospital to appear. And so when you look at the search terms that drive traffic to hospitals, you do see a lot of diseases and treatments coming up. And so if this is something that if you're a hospital trying to market to folks, it's something to consider thinking about to make sure that you're getting your message out to those people, because they are possibly seeking second opinions and other places to go. Now we also looked at disease, and this is something that so we looked at the search term variations around disease. And this is something that I always find really interesting in our data is the success rate, which is over to the right of the search terms. And the success rate gives us the percentage of searches that actually resulted in a visit. And so you can see that no one here has 100%. And so people are not finding everything they need when they execute these initial searches. So as an example, for Crohn's disease, because that was the top one to appear, you could see that if you filter that out with a higher success rate, so I just looked at 90% or above, you could see that Crohn's disease diet will give a better response. symptoms of Crohn's disease, living with Crohn's disease, what causes Crohn's disease. All of these are far more specific and driving a lot more traffic, or more successful in driving traffic than the shorter terms. And so it's something to think about in terms of keyword research, making sure that you're looking at that longer tail, which while it may have lesser traffic, it's far more successful and targeted. Alzheimer's is another really good example here, where 73% of searches going to a website, so a fairly low success rate. And so if you look at the search terms containing Alzheimer's disease, you can see that there's a few that have 100%, but then there's also some opportunities there. So if you have content around something like what causes Alzheimer's disease treatment, you should look at what kind of content you're providing. It may be as simple as what's the landing page that ends up in the search engine result pages, because if it's something that is very long and hard to understand, or the copy is not concise enough, it's not going to drive traffic. And so that's something to consider. And then also certainly digging in more and making sure that you have the appropriate content that they're looking for that's answering their questions. Now we see a lot of seasonal patterns, and this is another source as well, Google Trends. And so flu, pretty normal pattern that always takes place. Gets colder, the flu starts kicking in. And so last year, obviously swine flu, H1N1 was a big topic. And so what we saw was that that seasonal pattern that was very typical quickly interrupted, where the initial swine flu scare started back in May, and then as the season continued, a lot of folks were looking for things like the vaccine, the H1N1 vaccine, certainly because there was lower supply, also swine flu treatments, but you can see as H1N1 became more of the normal terminology for swine flu, that people started looking for that as well. And so it's making sure that you're understanding how they're looking for that. So still swine flu was prevalent despite trying to rebrand it as H1N1. So I'm going to try to quickly fly because we're running out of time. So recalls are another one. So children's Tylenol and Motrin had a recall, Johnson & Johnson recall in May 2010. And so what you saw with the search term variations, immediate spike taking place for Tylenol and Motrin. And so it's always, if there's a spike taking place, the first thing to do is figure out what's going on and why, because a spike could mean great things, great sales, publicity. Could also mean that people are really concerned about the recall. And so we saw that the majority of search terms containing Tylenol in that time frame included recall. And so Tylenol had a good response, because what they did is, because of the search term activity that had increased, they started buying traffic on their own term. And it's a good strategy because they were controlling the message that was going out to folks that were interested in the recall. It's good PR for them because they're taking an active role, but they're also, again, controlling that message that's going out to consumers. So quickly in summary, the new basics, and this is a combination of Bill and I, so there's the vision, and then I'll give you a tactical point to go with that. So the internet is prevalent in everyone's daily life, and so I think we're all used to this now, where everyone's going online, and it's not just the PC anymore. They've got it in their hands. They can check WebMD through an application on the iPhone. You can do a variety of things at all times. But making sure that it's accurate and understandable, because consumers are conducting a lot of searches around self-diagnosis and second opinions, so they need to be able to understand what they're looking at. And so certainly, making sure that the difference between someone who's just getting started versus someone who's much further down that funnel is far more informed. Also, the e-trail we leave behind is rich with potential insights, and this is always something that we talk about all the time at Hitwise, is dig into the search data and see what people are looking for. Understand how they speak. Certainly medical jargon, again, depending where they are in that funnel for research and information, they may understand certain terms versus not. It could even invoke more fear. And so definitely understand how they're searching. And then also beware of the narrative fallacy. So like we saw with the recalls, an increase in search could mean something good, but it could also mean something very bad as well. So make sure that you're always informed about what's causing those changes. With that, we have a blog called ilovedata.com where Bill and my other colleagues, as well as myself, are always posting new data insights. So definitely check that out and read, click. Thank you.